You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma podcast. Mike Hearn here, your host, back with another episode. Excited to share this episode with you today, but before we do, I've got to thank our sponsors. First of all, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame. They've been a huge part of this podcast for the last few years. So the Oklahoma Hall of Fame have been sharing Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com. And for daily updates, go to oklahomahof on Instagram and give them a follow. Our other sponsor today is Chickasaw Nation. Now, the Chickasaw Nation have sponsored pretty much everything in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma, and it's an honor to have their name and their brand supporting this podcast. A huge shout out to Governor Anatoby for supporting this podcast. It really means a lot. Our third sponsor is Diffie Ford Lincoln down in El Reno. Now, this one makes me so happy because these guys are great friends of mine, play a lot of golf together. I've bought my cars from them, do most of my oil changes down there, have a cup of coffee, hang out down in El Reno. It's a good spot to go. And not only are they great friends, but they provide a great service. So for over 60 years, third generation family owned Oklahoma business down in El Reno. They're also in Bethany as well. So people in the Bethany area know the Diffies really well. But if you're looking for anything new, used, Ford, Lincoln, or whatever, I'm sure they could find anything you want. Check them out, diffieford.net, and then on Instagram at diffiefordlincoln. This episode is presented by the Choctaw Nation. The Choctaw people have a rich history and a bright future. At the Choctaw Cultural Center, you can take part in a story 14,000 years in the making. Stroll through our immersive exhibits portraying Choctaw life from the moment our ancestors emerged from the Nani Weha in Mississippian homelands to the Trail of Tears, where we lost so many loved ones, and finally to the modern-day tribe making a positive impact on local communities throughout southeastern Oklahoma. Try your hand at our social dancing and stickball and learn more about our vibrant culture through demonstrations, workshops, and classes. The kids will have a blast in our Luxie Activity Center. The Choctaw Cultural Center is more than a museum. It's a living, breathing experience. Visit choctawculturalcenter.com to plan your visit. And let's get into today's episode. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, host, back with another episode we're down at Thunder Launchpad today. I'll turn my volume up so you can actually hear me. We are down in Oklahoma City at the Thunder Launchpad. I've been here once before to record with Erica and Chris, and I walked in this morning and walked back to their old space. So the people were like, who are these randoms? Who's this random guy walking in for a podcast? So I walked in the wrong door this morning. But we are here with Anna to talk about Vida bars. Right? Did I say that right?
Yes, Vida bars.
Okay, cool. So, thanks to Hetty, we met a few months ago. Mm-hmm. Was it before Christmas? It's been a while.
I think it was right before Christmas.
Because you were busy.
Yeah.
I walked into your manufacturing facility up in Guthrie, and all I just saw was just these orders, streams and streams of paper, which were orders for you, which is great to see for any business to have orders coming in. And you were frantically, busy packing stuff, which is always great. But before we dive into kind of the bars that you have and around sustainable hair care, tell me a little bit about you. What's your story? What's your kind of Oklahoma story? And how did you, end up in Oklahoma and have a manufacturing spot in Guthrie?
Yeah, so like you, Mike, I am an immigrant to Oklahoma. I was born outside of the country, born in Mexico, in Chihuahua, Mexico. Mm-hmm. And we came here when I was about 7 years old. I've lived here in Oklahoma City, Edmond area most of my life, but I have gone back to Mexico a few times during my childhood and late teen years. But I mean, I'm pretty much an Okie. Yeah. But of course, I stay very true to my roots and go home all the time, like a few times a year. I never imagined I would be an entrepreneur. It was not my goal. I never knew anything about it. But I'm a solutions-driven person, and I saw a problem that wasn't being solved, so I went for it. My background is in HR. I was working for a huge corporation in their HR team. I actually finished my master's degree as I launched my company right at the beginning of COVID. So it was a bit chaotic, but I think anybody that knows me knows that I'm kind of all over the place and driven and just go for things. And I guess that's kind of how it happened. But I think you would probably agree that as an immigrant, you kind of have to be that way. You kind of learn to adapt. And me being, from childhood having to learn to adapt, I've just, gone with the flow kind of always. And
that's the first thing that came to mind was just that immigrant mentality, right? Like no one else gets it unless you're an immigrant. Right? And it's not hard to explain. It's just a product of your upbringing. And when you come to the States or you come to a country that just, with hard work you can do anything, right? Like the UK isn't like that. Not as much as it is here, and I assume Mexico is the same, right? You come here, and especially you're a kid, you're kind of like, wow, this like the, and we all joke about it, but it's the American dream, right? And it is true. And I've spoken to many people like me and yourself that have built a business or done something, even if it is in the corporate world, right? They've just worked hard and but done something that maybe they couldn't have done back home,
right?
And you appreciate that more when you go home.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's also something to be said, like in my case, being coming from a single mom household, seeing her just doing it, like there's no other way of saying it, but just doing it. She was always doing it. And I think that I learned by example. Like my mom doesn't have a business or anything like that, but just seeing her always just doing the thing, whatever it was that thing was, just so you learn to do that, to do it too.
Yeah. Well, so when you were 7 years old, then what do you remember about coming to Oklahoma City?
I remember I was in private school in Mexico, and it was like a bilingual school, and I remember getting here and being like, they don't speak English like I learned English, but I was learning like the most basic things, like chicken, house, whatever, and it's like, why do they speak English differently here? But I don't know about you, but like me, I don't have a lot of family here. So I think that there's always been, from childhood, there's always that reminiscing of, not having family close by and having to like get really close to your friends because, they become your family kind of thing. So I think I've always just leaned into like a lot into the community around me.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Totally, 100%. Like you're totally right with that. When you have just, limited family here, or if any family, and then, you have your friend group that you meet at school, at university, whatever it is, at work, you really kind of thrive and kind of, really take advantage of those support systems, right? And then you make great friendships because you're right. Like, and like for me back home, like my grandparents lived less than a mile away, both of them when I grew up, and, I always saw family, for a lot during the week.
Right.
Whether it's just going home from school to my grandparents' house or, on the weekends, whatever it was, like we always kind of would see. Whereas now, you're away from it a lot, but, you have that friends to kind of mirror that. So as a kind of young girl growing up then, what were kind of like your interest? What did you think that, what do I want to be when I grow up?
I had no clue. I think even like before launching my own business, I still didn't know what I wanted to do. Yeah. I always envy the people that like have known since childhood, like, oh, this is what I want to be and do it. Yeah. Because I've never had an idea. Like, I think probably I also have ADHD, and that kind of comes with the territory a lot of times, where you're just scattered brain all over the place. Everything interests you, but nothing actually takes your interest. So, I was always just going with the flow.
Yeah. So because like kind of like you didn't really know definitive, for sure, like, hey, like this is my direction. Did you just decide to like, I'm going to stay in school as long as I can, and then that's kind of what led you into university and pursuing a master's too? No,
I really, my whole life has kind of been backwards. Okay. I had my daughter when I was 20.
Okay.
And I had dropped out of school because I got pregnant and I started going to college. I actually went to college for a year in Mexico, and then came back, and then I got like into college here and got pregnant and just didn't go to school anymore. And about 2008, when the recession hit, I was working for a company that was doing car parts. Okay. And, that was whenever the whole cash for clunkers thing. And like, so we were out of business. or that company wasn't doing very well, so they let me go. And I was like, okay, what do I do now? Like now I'm kind of, just out of a job and out of a career or anything. Yeah. So I went back to school as a working adult with my daughter. And I was married at that time. And so I went back to school, and I was just working and doing the whole wife and mom thing and going to school. Got my bachelor's degree. I actually had my son while I was doing my bachelor's degree. And then, so I was 30 when I graduated with my bachelor's degree. So that's what I'm saying. Like it kind of all went, like I did it all backwards. And, and then it took me a few years and got back into school, did my master's degree. I was already divorced by then. And then I became an entrepreneur. So it's like all the way backwards. And, it's funny because like with my master's, I thought about doing an MBA, and I was like, no way. I don't need all of that. I don't want the numbers. I don't have the headspace for it. And I'm like, maybe I should have gone for an MBA, because now my degree is in human relations. But because that interests me, I love people. I love the behavior of people. I love studying people. But, like now I wish I would have studied business instead. I think it would have came pretty handy.
Right. Yeah. Everyone I speak to that is like, 30 plus, that's either an entrepreneur or they never really started, a business. They've never been an entrepreneur since day one, right? They always done something. And, you look back at your college degree and you're like, man, I wish I'd have done business and finance, right? Like figured that stuff out. But, like you said earlier, you're kind of a solutions based person and, solutions driven person. And obviously you found a solution, which we can get to it in a second. But what was, when you decide to, you have your daughter at 20, and like I said, you're kind of like, whoa, like my world has really changed now, right? Like, and the good thing, you kind of had that example from your mum too, that you'd seen her kind of, just go through it and be able to do it, right? I think if I had a baby when I was 20, like I'd be losing my mind. I wouldn't know what to do, right? But because you'd seen that support system and seen that your mum could do it, you're a little less probably stressed that you're like, wow, like, my world's over, I'm having a baby, all this stuff. Like, you're probably not thinking that. So you mentioned you went back to Mexico to try to go to school back in Mexico?
Well, right out of high school, I did for a year. Yeah, I graduated high school, and again, I didn't have a clue what I was doing. And my sister called me and she said, hey, I'm moving to this town, and it's got a really cool university, and it's across the street from the beach, and I love the beach. And I was like, okay, I can stay landlocked in Oklahoma or go to the college in the beach town. And so I went, and I only stayed for a year because then my sister abandoned me there. Yeah. She was like, no, I don't like it. I'm leaving. And I was already enrolled in school, whatever. So I stayed for a year, and I was like, because it was all the way on the other side of Mexico. Okay. Like where I'm from, Chihuahua, is North Mexico. Okay. And this is like border with Belize. So I also didn't have any family or anything there. And I stayed, like, even now I'm really good friends with the girls that I met there. I'm actually going to Europe next month with one of them. So we stay in contact. I made really good relationships, but even then it was too hard for me to stay by myself down there. Right. So I came back and then got pregnant. Yeah.
Do you miss Mexico?
I do. I can't lie. Yes and no. I don't think I could live there full time anymore because, I've grown up here. I've, made my entire life here. Mm-hmm. But the culture, and there's always that feeling. I don't know if you have the same experience being, an Anglo man. But me as a Latina, I always still feel like an outsider. Yeah. Like no matter what, it doesn't feel like home. And so, I miss that part of it. And
it's probably...
And the food.
Well, yeah, that was going to be my next thing, too. It's like, you must miss food. Because even though the UK is not known for its cuisine, I do miss food back home and just kind of the culture and scene around food. Because food just brings people together and, drinks and whatever. But I think... I definitely don't feel, I definitely do feel different and left out. It's probably not as much. It's probably perceived not as much because, if you look at me, I probably generally fit in, right? Mm-hmm. And because I play golf, that kind of helps as well. But yeah, there are some times where, I open my mouth and people just look at me and they're like, you're not from here, right? And I'm like dressed in cowboy boots and I drive a truck sometimes and they're like, you're definitely like, you're not fooling anybody with that accent. So yeah, I do kind of, it's definitely not as much, but I do kind of feel sometimes I'm like, there's definitely, people have been either chosen over me because of, differences or out of state or whatever it is. So, it is like that. But I do feel the same way. I do miss that from home, right? And I agree, I couldn't live there. But there are certain times where I'm like, I just love to go home for a weekend, right? Go home for Christmas, go home to play golf, whatever it is, and just kind of not work. And because when you go home and you are working back home, like, oh, I'm part of it now. I don't want to be part of this. It's so much better working here than working, for me back home. So yeah, I do miss it.
Well, I think it's easier for me to go home too. So I do go back quite a bit. I go back to my hometown or city, but then I just travel to different parts of Mexico too. But now it's a little bit different. Now, getting older, my family, like my grandma is not there anymore, and like my godfather's not there anymore. So as you start losing family, there's a little bit less reason to go back home, and it doesn't feel the same. Right. But I mean, it'll always be home. Yeah,
I agree. It's special to have that, right? Like, it's fun, for when you're living 4,000 miles from home. And thankfully it's accessible, right? It's like if something happens, you can be there pretty much within 24 hours, which is, a blessing. But at the same time, there's sometimes I do feel left out from back home, right? Because it's just not there. There's certain things that are going on, or I'm in a group text with all my buddies from high school and from golf, and I'm like, I don't look at this group text anymore unless I go home, because it's totally, like, I'm just irrelevant. But as far as going into kind of like your entrepreneurship journey, did you work from a young age? Like, did you always kind of had jobs and always kind of an entrepreneur sense as a young age, even though you were in school and then you had your daughter, and like, were you always kind of not hustling, but always kind of like your mother was doing?
I've always worked. I mean, even in high school, I think that's a very much an American thing that you start working as soon as you turn 16 or even younger. Right. I've always worked. The only time that I haven't worked was that year that I went to college in Mexico was the only time. But then, I've always like worked and then tried to sell something on the side. Like just whatever, like the dumbest things. I've come up with the dumbest ideas. So whenever I launched this business, I told my parents, and my mom, now she's my biggest cheerleader on this business. But truth be told, when I told her, she was like, yeah, okay, good luck with that. But it was because like every other time, and again with the ADHD thing, it's hard for me to follow through. Right. So I like take on something and I'm like super excited about it, and then a month and I'm like, okay, so what's next? Right. So my mom was like, okay, yeah, for sure.
And then this one takes off and she's like, okay, great. Like, it was just kind of like the usual response to you starting a new business again. And then, like I said, this one takes off and she's like, now she's your biggest fan. Yeah. Which she always would have been. It's just like you said, when you start 10, 20 different businesses in the space of 5 years, it's like, another one, okay, good luck.
Yeah, absolutely.
Keep doing what you're doing. You're doing great, honey. Like, I'm here if you need it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and this was a legit business. I never actually did an LLC or anything. Right. I was just doing dumb stuff or whatever. Had these what I thought were great ideas and never followed through with them. Yeah. So I think she's proud that I actually have gone through with the project on something.
But when you look back, it's all training. It's all like reps, right? It's all, it all adds into the experience and the stuff that you learn from effectively failing, or not putting enough effort into it. You go forward and you get to now and you're like, I know exactly what I'm doing, Well, so that I know more about.
Do you? Because please tell me. Because I sure don't know. No, but I get what you mean. No, and it is. It's training. I mean, it's there's always a learning opportunity, I think, in everything that you do. So yeah, for sure. But I can definitely say we just turned 3. Our April 22nd was our 3-year anniversary. So just turned 3. But I mean, I still don't know what the heck I'm doing. I'm just doing it.
So then how does it start? How does this come about? And how do you think, this is worth me spending a lot of time into and developing a business and a product and all that, an e-commerce side set and all that stuff?
So I'm not an environmentalist by any means. Okay. And this is very much an environmental company that I launched. But I think more than that, it's an impact company. And that I am very proud of to say, I've always been driven by impact on most things that I do. I love to be able to say that I'm creating a positive impact. And so in this particular case for my business, it's kind of a funny story. well, you can't tell today, but you've seen me. I have, they look at my social media, any listeners, I have very, very curly hair, which I hated for the entirety of my life. And I think it goes back into the fitting in kind of thing. I just had to control it. And it was always the advertisements of like, frizz free, smooth, silky, straight hair. And it was like, yeah, that's not me. So I hated my hair. And I remember being like 11 years old and my sister ironing my hair, like an actual iron, like I still have a scar on my back where she dropped the iron one time. Yeah, no, it was a serious thing. Yeah. And I hated my hair. And my daughter was about 14, 15, and she was like, I hate my hair. And she has the prettiest, curliest hair. And I was like, no, how do you hate it? It's so beautiful. Yeah. I know how you hate it because I hate my hair. And so, I very much lead by example kind of person with my kids, which is why I went and got my master's degree, because I was like, okay, I have to do this because my kids have to, aim for better or whatever. So I was like, okay, I can't tell her not to straighten my hair if I'm straightening my hair. So let's figure this out. And I'm telling you, I had never took care of my curls, like ever. When I was fixing my hair, I was always fixing it to straighten it. So I had to literally learn from scratch. And my mom has super curly hair and my sister, but we all were always straightening it. So I had no clue what to do. So I learned how to how to take care of my curls, stop straightening it. And of course, when I stopped straightening it, it wasn't curly anymore. It was beyond damage. There was no curl to it. It was just fluff. So long story short, I learned how to take care of my curls and start posting on like curly hair Facebook groups. Okay, this is where it all started. And people were like, hey, do you have an Instagram? Can you share it? Like, share what your tips, share your tutorials. I didn't know it was a thing. So I started getting followers. I set up an Instagram account and started getting followers. And then as I gained followers, companies started contacting me to for me to try out their products. And of course, I try to be very genuine. And so I would only recommend products that I actually liked or whatever. But during this time, my mom and I took a trip. I love traveling. Like that's my thing. And my mom and I took a trip to Indonesia, and it was so beautiful, but there was so much trash. Like, I mean, it was incredible how much trash there was. And I got back from that trip and I was just very impacted by it. I was awestruck at, the pollution. And I was watching Trevor Noah. I'm so sad that he's not on air anymore, but he had a segment about the recycling system and how exploitative and broken it is. And I don't know if you know, but only 9 to maximum 11% of all plastics in the world ever get recycled. Okay. And it's very exploitative. The UK, the US, and large countries were actually exporting most of their recyclables, trash, basically, overseas to a lot of Southeast Asian countries. So I'm watching this segment and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is really horrible. Because again, I'm not an environmentalist, but I do put my plastics or whatever in the recycle bin and I put it out, so I try. Yeah. And so now I'm like, oh, I feel really bad because I'm contributing to this. And now it's not just me that's contributing. And literally I have at this point, over 100 plastic bottles of products between my shower, my cabinets. I mean, it's madness, right? Because I've been trying out all these products to tell my followers about. So, but now it's not just my products. Now it's the thousands of followers that I have and I'm telling them about it. So I'm feeling like there's an impact to be made here. So I start looking for sustainable options. And there are great companies already out there that are making solid products. But none of them were for curly hair. And so I saw a huge need in the market for that because I could not find anything that was formulated that was good for curly hair or any kind of textured hair. And so I was like, okay, well, there's a big problem here. And it took forever for companies to even start formulating towards curly hair. Now there's also really good companies out there that are making products for curly hair. But it took forever for that to happen. So now I'm thinking, how long is it going to take before somebody takes notice that they should also be making sustainable products for curly hair? I wasn't going to wait around, and not even for the money, because I'm still not even in it for the money. I mean, I literally worked over 3 years because, of course, I launched April 2020, but I had been working on it for a year before launch. So it's like, so where I was going with that is I didn't even quit my job. I kept my full-time job to be able to pay my bills and everything until November of 2022. Wow. So I worked for 3.5 years on this before I even quit my job, right? So I'm not in it for the money. But so that wasn't where I was thinking then, but it was like, man, this needs to happen. Like, sustainability can be inclusive. And I don't think anybody is seeing that right now. And if nobody's going to see it, then I'm going to put it out there. I'm going to shine a light on it. So I put a post. Well, I started like just Googling has been my teacher for everything. And I like just made a simple bar, shampoo and conditioner, and it kind of worked. So I made a video on it and I posted it. And to date, it's been like the one that like everybody engaged on. I had like over 700 comments of people were like, yes, do it. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. Like, absolutely. Like, I'll be the one buying it and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So, then I kind of had that moment of, okay, I have to do it. And I had already put it out there. So it was kind of an accountability thing of like, okay, yeah, I have to do this. And then that's it. That's where Vida Bars was born.
Excuse me. So, and for people listening, I apologize. We're both, it's like allergy season in Oklahoma.
Spring in Oklahoma. Yeah. If you're here, you know this.
And I appreciate you getting through it. So, so when you think like I'm going to make a bar, right? You said Google is your best friend. You know nothing at this point about like how to make a bar of soap or whatever it is you're making, right? You're just going to Google and thinking, how do I make it? And then you're adding sustainable ingredients into it to process, and through trial and error, you come up with this product. Yeah,
absolutely. So first, I will make a huge distinction, and not to say anything about you, but I'm just clarifying, it is not soap. Do not wash your hair with soap. Anybody listening, do not wash your hair with soap. It is terrible. But it is a shampoo bar.
Okay, there we go.
So solid shampoo.
That's why we do this podcast.
Yes. Solid shampoo. But yeah, no, I know nothing about it, right? All I know is like somebody else already did it, so it can be done. Let's do it now for curly hair. Yeah. I know what ingredients to look for, what ingredients are good for curly hair, and which ones to avoid. And the biggest issue was that a lot of the ingredients to avoid were already in the products in the solid shampoos that were already in the market. So I'm like, okay, what can we use instead of that? So that's where I started doing all my research. But yeah, I know zero about any of it. I didn't study cosmetology. I didn't study chemistry. I literally know nothing except for, okay, where do I start on Google? And I spent so many sleepless nights, because I'm working my job during the day and I have my kids, and I'm a single mom by then, and so it's like, but I want to do this. And the ADHD thing again comes into play because it's very much a superpower when it needs to be, right? You can hyper focus on things, and I think that that's what happened with me. Just thinking about it now, I don't know that I could go back and do it again. Like, just thinking about it, like, how the heck did I even do this? Because so now we have a total of 13 products, and I formulated all 13 products. And again, I'm not a formulator. I don't have a chemistry background, but by God, that, thousands of customers have said I did what I set out to do, which was, create really good sustainable products for textured hair. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, like, even in my family, my daughter has curly hair, my mom has curly hair. We don't use the same products. We can't use the same products because it's not a one size fits all. And that's what I wanted to make sure and do, is create products that were good for the different needs of textured hair. And I'm proud to say I did. Yeah. I have.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
It's just like, and especially like, just to remind people, you did this single mom with 2 kids.
From the kitchen of my home.
Working a full-time job.
Yeah. And doing my master's.
Yeah, exactly. So don't think that you can't do, hard stuff, people, because it can be done. Even raising one kid, even having puppies or dogs, is hard enough.
Yeah.
Then you mentioned a full-time job and going to school on top of that. Like, it's really incredible what you've done. And I think what you said was, once you focus on that goal, you just kind of, it's great to have that just one focus. Like, any waking moment that I have that's not, with my kids or with school or with work, I'm focusing on this business. I'm focusing on formulating, this bar, right, and this product. You mentioned a little bit where, you kind of went, you use social media to keep yourself accountable. You have a really big social media following, right?
Yes.
And not just like you personally have a big following, and then you started the bar page, which I'll post both Instagrams in the description down below. People can go check that out. But tell me about kind of using that. I know about it, right? I know that it's such an easy tool to use. It's such a simple tool to use, and it's super effective because it's also free. But tell me about kind of just where that mindset was for you to just tell your story, even though, you were on social media before you had this product, right? So, and just kind of, hey, I have curly hair, like, let's just be a part of the community, way before you even had this idea for the product. So tell me a little bit about kind of the social side of things and just how you've used that as a tool going forward.
Honestly, social media has been everything for me doing this business. I've leveraged it all on social media. Even up to now, 3 years later, we have done the most minimum spend on marketing, period. So everything has been organic growth, and I would say at least 90% of that has been through social media. And again, not paid ads or anything. It's just people posting about it and sharing and all of that. And I think that there's a lot to be said about how you use social media, right? Because there is so much negativity around it, and it can be very negative. But I think that it's important to be able to say, okay, what's good for me, both in the content that I am taking. So as a user of social media, right? Like looking for things that are positive for you, that inspire you, and even I tell my followers, like, if I'm not serving you the content you want, you have zero responsibility towards me. Like, I will not feel bad if you don't follow me, because, I want somebody to enjoy what they're seeing from me and not compare themselves to me, or, not like there's an aspirational part of it or aspect to it, but just because it's aspirational doesn't mean that you should compare yourself to that. And there's also, everybody knows, like, the social media is the highlight or the reels of things, so not everybody always shares the bad part, and I think that that's where like I said, I try to be very genuine, so I share those things too. I share when I'm having a hard time, and I think that that's probably where it becomes relatable, right? That, like, things aren't perfect, that you have really great days and you have some days that aren't so great. So I think that if you find somebody that's relatable, if you find somebody that they're not always showing you the perfect things, like people like that, or not necessarily like it, but you can see, okay, like, it's more real kind of thing. But I think that that's also helped on the business aspect of it, because we're a brand, and we tell them, like, we're a really small business, we're a really small team. Sometimes we get it wrong, and people reach out to us via email or whatever and tell us, hey, like, my order didn't come in, or I think it was 2 weeks ago, we had a family emergency and we didn't get orders out for like almost over 10 days, and people reached out, and I was like, I'm really sorry, we have a really small team and we're going through something really, like, horrific right now. So, like, please bear with us. And people are understanding. And I think that back to the social media thing, like, I think if both as a consumer of social media and as a content creator, I think that there's that balance of saying, okay, like, obviously you don't want to, like, make it a doomsday kind of thing, but like, life is real and life has its ups and downs, and I think it's a really good way of leveraging social media for personal growth, like what you consume, but also for growing as a business, whether it's your personal brand or a business brand.
It's relatable, right? Like, not everybody's perfect, and everyone knows that. And you're right, with, like, everyone sees your Instagram as, like, kind of like the best parts of your life, right? But if you are up there posting saying, look, like, I'm swamped with orders right now, or we have some family issues, or whatever it is that's going on in life, your daughter's sick, whatever, people kind of resonate with that. I think they people's, and I say this quite a lot, is people's BS meters are way better now than they used to be, right? So it's very easy to see through people's nonsense and them not being real with a lot of people. Whereas if you come in to say, look, like, I'm struggling, like, I'm a small business, like, I'll get it to you. Like, I appreciate, and if you want to go somewhere else, fine. But I appreciate the fact that you're willing to give us a chance, and like, we will get it to you. Just know that, we don't have an Amazon warehouse, right? And robots shipping things, right?
Right.
So,
well, and even like, as a owner of a curly hair brand, I go on there and I'm not having a perfect hair day. I mean, my hair is super slick back today because I did not have time to fix my hair. And even that part, I think that is also a good thing. I mean, and I can tell you, I personally had like this pressure on myself of like, my hair has to be perfect because how am I representing my brand if my hair doesn't look perfect? But it's like, no, because curly hair, if you have curly hair, you know that you're not going to have good hair days every day. Like, it's part of having curly hair that sometimes your hair just does whatever it wants, or sometimes you don't have time to fix it and you have to sleek it back, whatever. And so I allowed myself that liberty of saying, I have to be who I am, and my customers will relate to that because they also know that struggle, right? Exactly. And that's one of the things that I always tell them, like, I know the struggle. Like, I personally know this struggle. And, like, even talking about our products, like, our conditioner bars are actually bigger because me, as a curly-haired person, know that we use a lot more conditioner than shampoo. Okay. And it's always the struggle of when you buy a shampoo and a conditioner bottle in the same size, you always run out of conditioner way before you do shampoo. So that's one of the things I always say, like, our conditioner bar is bigger because we know the struggle. So the same thing about, like, not always fronting with like, oh, I have this perfect gorgeous head of hair. I do some days, and some days it's wild and it's fine. I love it still. Yeah,
it's fun. And my wife has really curly hair, and my wife's side of the family they're Native American, and I assume that's where it comes from. I never really asked her that. I should probably ask her that when we get home tonight. But she's always had really curly hair, and I saw photos of her as a little girl, and she's like got this massive fro, right? Like, kind of looks like a lion's mane. Like, it's just, and until, she got old and she learned kind of how to, do her hair and stuff, she's always kind of had it straight. But there are some mornings she wakes up and she's like, I'm not doing my hair today. Like, and it, and where I'm going to is the product for people, everybody with curly hair, every woman with curly hair, or is it specific to kind of just the like the culture and the way you grew up and the area that you grew up in? Is it more for for kind of South American cultures that way, or is it for everybody?
No, so that's the thing. Like, that's where I wanted to be in those 6 different formulas that we have, because again, I mean, there's such a wide variety. Just because you have curly or textured hair does not mean that you have the same needs, and so that's why I formulated all of the products, because I wanted it to be from anybody that has like very fine curls that get weighed down super easily to really thick, coarse hair that needs like really rich, heavy products. One can't use the other, and one won't get good results like the other will. And so I formulated a range of products for all of that. And the thing is, I formulated specifically thinking of the needs of curly hair, and we market for curly hair. But I have so many customers that have zero texture in their hair, that have like this sleek, straight hair, and absolutely love my products because they're really, I mean, obviously I'm going to toot my horn, and
sure.
I will. My opinion is biased, but no, I mean, I did not stop at saying, okay, well, that this is good enough. I said, no, I want quality, and so we put really good ingredients into our product, and people, even people that have zero curl to their hair love it.
Yeah, the reviews speak for themselves, right? Like that kind of, I know, you with being a small business owner, obviously you're going to be your biggest fan, but also like if you've got great reviews, then you don't have to. You have backing behind those, right? You have stuff to kind of back that up, but. Take me through then. Obviously, you started the business during COVID, April 2020, and you worked a full-time job pretty much went to school up until November of last year. Take me through this kind of business building process then, and how you started, how you got involved, how you ended up going. building connection with the Meridian, the tech up in Guthrie, and just kind of going through that process as a small business and what aids there are out there and what resources you used. I think there's really valuable information for anyone that's listening that's thinking, hey, I might start a small business manufacturing something similar, or soaps or whatever, or candles, whatever it is. That it's a similar process, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I think there are a lot of things that can be leveraged that are really accessible right now. Again, I was working my full-time job. I had my kids. COVID hit. And by then I had already developed most of the formulas. Because of the network that I had built on social media with other content creators in the curly hair community, I had them testing my products. So I think it's always good to build a community and be genuine with people again. Because I reached out to them and I said, hey, you guys saw this. I'm trying to build this. Would you test it out for me? I got reviews and everything. So, again, I had worked on it for almost a year in making the formulas. And I was doing all of this out of the kitchen of my home. And I did it even after launch for another 6 months out of my kitchen. And then I moved into my garage. But to kind of transition to that, I leveraged a lot of the relationships that I had built in the curly community for people to test them out. When I finally launched, it was at the beginning of the pandemic. We had no idea what was in store, right? We thought a few more weeks. And so I kind of was hesitant on, okay, when do I launch kind of thing. But it was Earth Day coming up. And again, I have to have some accountability, because if not, I'll just let things linger, and then it would have just kind of phased out. So I was like, okay, we're doing this for Earth Day. So I set the launch date. I think it wasn't even a month out. I think sometime in March I was like, okay, we're doing this April 20th. So launched April 20th. Thankfully, because I had already built an audience through my social network, my following, and then through the influencers that I had sent out the samples to, we sold out within, I believe it was the first week that we sold out of the first batch that I made. And that was pretty cool. I was like, okay, there is a market here, right? But again, because I'm working, now it's the pandemic, my kids are home full-time, going to school full-time at home. I'm trying to finish my master's degree and all of this, and we're stuck at home. It was whenever we couldn't even go out. I was like, okay, I don't have that much time to be making this, because again, now I'm making it in my kitchen, so I don't have time to cook and all of that. So it took me another month to make another batch of product. So I put it out again the next month, and then it sold out within 2 days. So I was like, okay, we really do have a market for this. And we did that for 6 batches. It went like that. And by the 6th batch, it sold out within the first hour. And I was at capacity. I could not make any more the way that I was making them. So I was like, okay, now it's time to scale. And how do I scale this? So I bought some, I again kept doing research on Google. I looked on YouTube, and then I was taking in from because there wasn't really anybody doing what I'm doing, and especially not that we're putting content out there on how to do this. So, I was just learning from other soap makers and others, okay, here's some things that they're doing that I could use. So I bought some industrial equipment, and I converted my garage. My dad helped me and converted my garage into a shop. So we worked there for another 8 months probably. And then I was moving to Stillwater because my daughter was going to OSU. Okay. So I found out about the incubator program that Oklahoma runs, which anybody that's starting a business or that has a small business that's already been launched, look into the incubator program. I highly recommend. It's a great program. There's so many throughout the Oklahoma City metro area, throughout the state. And they do a lot of guidance for you for, how to scale businesses, how to run your business plans, all of that. But then they also have office space, warehouse space, manufacturing space. I mean, there's kind of they can fill the need, the gap for a lot of different needs. There's a really big perk to it. They can find out. Just Google it. You guys will find out. There's really great perks to that program. I happen to land in Meridian because they have one out in Stillwater. Sure. and they had a really good space for me. So I stayed out there for a year. I was in Stillwater with my daughter, and then moved back to Edmond, and they had just opened up the facility where we met up in Guthrie. And so I moved into that shop June of last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference when you have that support, right? And just those people to ask questions to, people who've been through the same thing that you're going through or something similar, just so that you can bounce ideas back. And it goes such a long way when you're in this group, in this incubator, and you make one question, you make one post, and six people say, yeah, I've got this for you. I know this person, let's get it together. It just takes those, saves you so much time. Right?
Yeah.
It takes those 2 to 3, hours worth of researching, finding the right person, getting the right person on the phone, getting an email for someone, and you just know it's right here. Get after it.
Yeah, well, and
so
it's cool to make also connections here in Oklahoma. Yeah. Like my neighbors, I've worked with my neighbors. My next door neighbor now in Guthrie, he actually does lean processing for manufacturers. Okay. So I contracted with him, and he came out and looked at my processes and gave me a whole bunch of details on how we could change some things to lean out our process. I did a podcast with Hetty, who also is next door to me. Out in Guthrie, my next door neighbor out there does product development, and he helped me create a mold or a container for my bars. So it's really cool that you also get to network with others that are business owners that have nothing to do with what you're doing, but somehow it's still beneficial for both. And it's a really, really cool program. And then also just being able to make connections through that program here in Oklahoma, because now a lot of my business is direct to consumer through our website. So we've sold in every single state. We sell to Canada, amazing. We sell to Mexico, we sell in Australia, but I wasn't getting a lot of local traction here. Not a lot of people knew about my product, and obviously again tooting my own horn, and like you said, I am my own biggest cheerleader, but I'm also my biggest critic, and I think any good business owner will do both, right? I think it's a really cool story that we have, that I launched from my kitchen because of this program. Now we're able to scale. We're doing manufacturing. Nobody really knows about it. And we've saved to date over 150,000 bottles of plastic from ever being produced. I think that's a really cool story of something that's happening here in Oklahoma. And for people to not know about it. I mean, everybody uses shampoo every single day, almost, or a few times a week, right? And it's okay, if you are going out and buying a bottle of shampoo, at least give it a try for a local business that's manufacturing here locally, that's doing a sustainable thing. I think people would at least give us, a shout out or try it out, go and buy it or whatever if they knew about it. So I'm glad that, through that program and a few others, I'm finally being able to get a little more traction. Well, so thanks for the invite again.
Yeah,
Mark.
of course. and it's amazing to have that local support, but the fact that you've sold in every state, that's amazing too.
Yeah.
Right? The communities.
I can tell you, we did that within the first 4 months. Yeah.
Excuse me. I have a coughing fit over here. Well, it is incredible, right? When you have that support. And this product speaks for itself, and word travels, like wildfire, especially on social media. And you get these orders in, and you're selling out within a day, and you get to that, and you're like, wow, I need to make more bars, right? I need to scale, I need to get to that. It's hard to stay patient at that point, right? It's kind of, you could easily get frustrated with your situation, right? You're like, but you've got to look back, and you've got to see the good side of things to say, look, I'm a small business. I've been doing this, for 3 years or whatever it is up until that point, and you're like, look at how far we've come in this short amount of time, and I obviously you're just listening to you chat now, you're kind of a dreamer too, right? You've always got some idea, you're always working towards something, you're very goal orientated. I mean, what's the plan? What's next? Where do you see it going? What do you want to do? What's the short list for this year, but then future plans too?
So short list right now is getting into retail. Okay. Everything has been direct to consumer. About 95% of our business right now has been direct to consumer. One thing, a really cool thing. So our packaging direct to consumer is not retail ready, but it's really cool. We put them in these little pouches that are manufactured or they're handcrafted by indigenous artisans from Chihuahua, Mexico, where I'm from. So I I partnered with a co-op down there of artisans. They make the little pouches, and that's how we ship them out, obviously in boxes. But we put the bars in these little pouches. Which I think is really cool to be able to give those, back home an economic opportunity to make these for us, because we pay them a premium for them instead of, just buying off of AliExpress or whatever, ordering from overseas. But that's not retail ready packaging. So I'm going to continue to do that direct to consumer packaging. But now to get into retail, because that's where we want to go, is to be able to say, okay, we're ready for salon. They are salon quality formulas. And we do have them in a few salons here in Oklahoma and a few throughout the country. But now with the actual packaging, we can get in every salon, we can get into boutiques, we can get into big box stores. I'm not sure that that's the route we want to go right now. But eventually you'll probably see us, on the shelves of Sephora and Ulta. I don't think that's my immediate goal.
Sure.
Maybe that's like 2 to 3 years down the line, because we have a lot more scaling to do before we can get to that point. I have a lot more learning to do. But in the next, by the end of the year, I hope to at least be like in 100 stores nationwide.
Amazing.
And we will be at the Oklahoma City Night Market in a couple of weeks. That's coming up.
Okay.
We never do any events. We don't do pop-ups. We don't do a farmer's market or anything like that. But I thought that was going to be a really cool opportunity again to get to be able to.
Is that the Asian night market?
It's the night market over at the Scissortail Park.
Okay,
yeah. We're going to be there, and so that's the biggest thing right now coming up. And then we have a few other things coming in as far as product development. We have sample sizes. A lot of people ask for that, and a few other product developments that's probably coming before the end of the year. But there's a lot, from being CEO to janitor and everything in between. It takes up a lot.
And a full-time mom.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's really cool, and I definitely, like we were saying from the beginning, like there's so much opportunity to be had. I think you can take that opportunity. There's a lot of work to be had too, but I also understand there's a big gap in being able to bridge that. But thankfully, I'm able to do it, and I'm really thankful for the people that have given me a shot, both in my customers and then also the people around me that have listened to our story and looked at what we're doing and wanted to help somehow.
Yeah, it's a great reminder to people listening, and there's so many examples of this, and it's great to keep reminding people that through hard work and just have a bit of a dream, right? And you do have time to do things.
Mm-hmm.
You just need to make time. You might need to sleep a little less and not sit on the couch and watch Netflix or whatever it is that you're watching. And I kind of, it reminded me, life goes by so fast, right?
Mm-hmm.
You blink and 5 years have gone by. And if you think, what if I put an hour every single night for 5 years into something, right? And I think a lot of people, we're, as a society, we're very kind of impatient, right? We want something now, we want the next best thing now, or whatever it is, whether it's products or, fast food or fitness or anything, we're very kind of like that. And I think if you can just be patient and just, build brick by brick, right? And hour by hour, and the whole, eat the elephant one bite at a time, and just slowly plan something. For me, I keep thinking about learning to play the piano, right? And I've been thinking about this probably for 10 years, right? I've never done anything. I haven't even touched the keys. But I think of myself, if I just put 30 minutes or an hour every night into practicing and just watch YouTube videos.
I was going to say YouTube it.
I'd be pretty good at it, right?
If I learned how to make shampoo and conditioners from YouTube and Google, anybody can do it.
It doesn't cost any money, right? It's just time and commitment.
Yeah.
So.
But no, and honestly, to me, the biggest part is literally out of my house in Oklahoma City, this was born.
Yeah.
And I do have to say, not to be cocky or anything, but I am confident in saying, I'm proud of myself. It wasn't an easy fit. But, even in Oklahoma where, I don't know, it doesn't seem like things are usually born or, there's big things happening around here. We've made it happen. And I've had a lot of connections outside of Oklahoma that have helped. There's stuff that's going on in California, New York, more on the PR side. But I mean, there's, like I said, with this program that, that I'm in Meridian, but there's a lot bigger program than that.
Yeah.
There's opportunities available. Yeah. So it's really cool. Like, it's awesome. I'm just really thankful.
And in such a short amount of time, right? Like 3 years is, it's not grand scheme of things. It's not a lot of time, and the work and the effort that you've put in, and it's not easy, right? Like it's not easy even if you didn't have kids and you didn't go to school full time and have a full time job. Like it's just not easy being a business owner. The fact that you've done all this and put out a quality product, like I don't want to overshadow the fact that this product clearly speaks for itself, and it sells because it's good at what it does. It doesn't sell because it's sustainability is a buzzword and you just hit the timing at the right point. No, your product's very good at what it does, right? And you got 13 different types of products. It's not just this one hit wonder, right? Like people keep coming back, they keep buying, and people listening, like there's just so many examples of like you can do it. It just takes time.
And there is support here in Oklahoma. I mean, like where we're at now here in the Thunder Launchpad, Stitch Crew is home here. Stitch Crew has great programs that they're running. I'm also like in contact with the Alliance, the OKC Progress. I mean, there's last year I was given an award for Oklahoma City's. I can never remember what the award is, and I feel so bad. The Entrepreneur of the Year, but it was for something specific. I think it was something like Vanguard or something like that, just because of the type of business that I created. But there's opportunities like. I think more and more now, Oklahoma is really trying to showcase and support small businesses and what we're doing. So there is opportunity to be had.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're around Erica long enough, you're going to do something.
Oh, Erica!
Right? And Chris.
Shout out to Erica because she is the best. She's awesome. Yeah.
And obviously she has similar backgrounds to you growing up.
Actually, we were from the same city. She was also born in Chihuahua. So we grew up like right down the street from each other.
I haven't been. I mean, obviously we kind of stay in touch generally through social media. I haven't seen her in a long time, but usually when I do see her, I think I need to do more with my life. I could run through a brick wall right now.
She makes you want to do all of the things,
which is awesome. So for people listening, then, what's the social media plugs? Like, how do they get to your product? How can they buy your product? Let's get down to the real stuff. Where can they go?
Okay, listen. You need to buy Vida bars. Shampoo and conditioner bars. If you have curly hair, we also have a leave-in conditioner. So, wash day, we're ready for you. You can buy us. The website is thevidabars.com. The Vida Bars. And then you can also find us on socials, the same, The Vida Bars, on Instagram, on Facebook. And then my personal brand page is Vida by Pearls. So find us there. Send us a DM, email us, all of the things. We're glad to hear from somebody if they have any questions. They want to know which formula is for them. There's a quiz on our website, but they're always welcome to slide into our DMs.
As I cough into my outro. God, I'm going to edit this podcast so much. Thank you. Thank you for an hour of your time. I can't even get through the outro without coughing. Thank you for everyone listening. I will post the links to everything Anna just mentioned in the description. You can go right there. And if you have curly hair, you need to try this out. If you
don't have curly hair,
there we go. I should probably try this out, and I have short hair.
I got you.
There we go. Thank you so much. God, it's awesome. So now I will give you a product review on our next podcast. But yes, Anna, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Launchpad and Erica for having this space for us to record in.
Gracias.
And for people listening, we'll catch you next episode. Cheers.
Hope you guys enjoyed that great episode. Thank you so much for listening. As always, huge shout out to our sponsors, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, sharing Oklahoma story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com and follow them on Instagram for daily updates at oklahomahof. Our other sponsor, the Chickasaw Nation, amazing sponsor. They do amazing things for the state, and they're always sponsoring something in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma, and without their support, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. And our third sponsor is Diffie Ford Lincoln down in El Reno. Now, this one makes me so happy because these guys are great friends of mine, play a lot of golf together. I've bought my cars from them, do most of my oil changes down there, have a cup of coffee, hang out down in El Reno. It's a good spot to go. And not only are they great friends, but they provide a great service. So for over 60 years, third generation family owned Oklahoma business down in El Reno. They're also in Bethany as well. So people in the Bethany area know the Diffies really well. But if you're looking for anything new, used, Ford, Lincoln, or whatever, I'm sure they could find anything you want. Check them out, diffieford.net, and then on Instagram at diffiefordlincoln. This episode is presented by the Choctaw Nation. The Choctaw people have a rich history and a bright future. At the Choctaw Cultural Center, you can take part in a story 14,000 years in the making. Stroll through our immersive exhibits portraying Choctaw life from the moment our ancestors emerged from the Nani Weha in Mississippian homelands to the Trail of Tears, where we lost so many loved ones, and finally to the modern-day tribe making a positive impact on local communities throughout southeastern Oklahoma. Try your hand at our social dancing and stickball and learn more about our vibrant culture through demonstrations, workshops, and classes. The kids will have a blast in our Luxie Activity Center. The Choctaw Cultural Center is more than a museum. It's a living, breathing experience. Visit ChoctawCulturalCenter.com to plan your visit. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.